Games based on Slavic mythology and culture are rare. A lot of people will be quick to name The Witcher as one of the famous examples that popularized the Slavic culture, but in reality, Sapkowski himself said in one of his interviews that his books were not based solely on Slavic mythology, and he wrote The Witcher as a classic versatile fantasy. There are more games which have appeared in recent years, but still one can count them on your fingers. Cutting through the waves of the internet in search of old game stuff, I stumbled across a rare gem made in year 1998 and never published. A Russian point and click quest dedicated to life, culture, and mythology of ancient Slavs called Arkona. The game looks rather beautiful even today, it doesn't hurt you to play it despite its age, and the music is just wonderful. The setting is very unusual and unique. It all sounds so great, so why wasn't it published then? Oh, something happened in Russia in 1998. A fucking default. It wasn't published back then, but the internet remembers. Now this game can be found on oldgames.ru. From what I managed to find, it was published on this site in 2008. The information about the development and the developers themselves is scarce. A developer, Vitaly Pustovetov, was the one to finish the game and he was the one to share it with the site. The music is written by Denis Savin. It's very nice. You can check the link to the host of the game in the description. Sergei Zubakov is a 3D artist who worked on the game and he mentioned it only once in an interview. I've been working with computer graphics since 1997. We were doing a small point and click quest on Russian mythology at the time, but unfortunately the game never came out, a crisis struck and everything died down. So the game starts.
В древние времена богами правил Триглав, бог воинственный и могучий. Три головы его смотрели в прошлое, настоящее и будущее. Три головы его следили за явью, правью и навью. Но тогда Свинтовит, бог плодов земных и войны, решил отобрать у него часть земель и восстал против Триглава. Решающий бой вышел у них на берегу моря. Хитростью одолел Свинтовит великого Триглава. Сумел он найти и захватить яйцо, из которого родился Триглав, и лишил тем самым его силы. Поделили они земли. Получил Свинтовит свой удел все острова моря и берега его на 100 верст. Яйцо же, из которого родился Триглав, он отдал храниться своим преданным людям в город Аркону, что расположен на острове Руян. Отдав его, сказал им ругийцам: «Храните его, ибо это знак моего внимания к вам. Если не сумеете уберечь его, отвернусь я от вас, и беда постигнет ругийские земли». Много веков хранят они заветное яйцо в тайной комнате в храме Свинтовита. Охраняет храм дружина из 300 конников и 300 пеших. Если бы кто покусился на него, к ним прибавилось бы еще 3000 воинов, и все мужчины способны держать в руках мечи. Никто не может украсть яйцо, так хорошо оно оберегается.
I think I need to explain some stuff first. From what I could find on the internet, the game was presented as historically accurate. Of course, it's far from reality, and it would be stupid to take it as an encyclopedia about the Slavs or something. There are names of gods, places, and concepts, but they're just thrown around. Disclaimer: I am not a historian, and it's hard to research information about the Slavs because the amount of misinformation is quite high. You see, the written sources from the era of Slavic paganism are scarce, and the number of modern interpretations made by neo pagans, pseudoscientists, and just freaks believing in the glorious past is vast. So please, take all that I say further about Slavic culture, religion, gods, and way of life with a grain of salt. Triglav literally means three-headed one. He was the chief god of the Pomeranian and probably some of the Palabian Slavs. My guess is that in this case the Palabian Slavs are the one in whom we are interested, because it was them who established Arkona. We'll return to it a bit later. There are several interpretations. One is he was a chthonic god. Chthonic means that he was connected to the underworld and death. The second interpretation states that he may have combined three gods responsible for earth, heaven, and underworld. And the third one is that Triglav originated in Christianity and the Holy Trinity. After Christianization of Pomerania, Triglav was demonized, and 15th century Liber Sancti Jacobi even refers to Triglav as the enemy of mankind. Svintavit or Svetavit or Svantavit or Svetavit was the god of abundance, war, and the chief god of the Slavic tribe of Ruyane, and later of all the Palabian Slavs. His cult was located on the island of Rügen. Today it's in Germany. In the game and in a lot of not so historical articles, the same island is called Ruyan. But I didn't find any information whether Rügen had ever had this name in reality. In the Palabian language, it was called Rana. In Latin, Rugia or Rusia, Ruyania was a name of the tribe itself, and in the Palabian language they spoke, they referred to themselves as Rani. Both of the gods above are gods of West Slavs. Later in the game, we'll see though that the developers just mixed and matched Slavs and their beliefs as they saw fit. You see, Slavs weren't a united nation. They never had a one united state. All the tribes had their own gods, beliefs, traditions, and ways of performing rituals. What united the Slavs was that they did not live written epics. Scandinavians had Edda, for example. That's why we know about Scandinavian mythology so much. But the Slavs didn't do such things. Back then, the oral tradition was very strong, so maybe they saw no need in it. Moreover, their primary material was wood, and wood tends to rot in the ground. That's why it's so hard to separate the grain from the weeds today. Then there are some Rugians, Rugiцы in Russian, mentioned, but there was no such Slavic tribe. There existed Rugi, Rogi, or Rugians, but they were Germanic tribe of late antiquity. Ethnonym Rugi was used towards Kievan Rus, but by Europeans and in 10th and 11th centuries. Now about Yav, Nav, and Prav. These are neo-pagan terms which originate in the Book of Veles, which is a fabrication made in 19th or 20th century. So, even if it sounds cool, no such terms were mentioned in any real authentic sources, and neo-pagans themselves can't agree with each other on what they mean. In the most common understanding, Prav is the world of good, positive gods. Yav is the world of people, and Nav is the underworld. But late in the game, we'll see that here Prav is used in the meaning of law. City of Arkona was a real place on Rügen, though the Slavs who lived there most likely didn't call it like that. Slavic names typically don't have A as their first letter, though Latin or German use it a lot. So it's speculated that Arkona is the word that was used by Latin authors who changed the name according to the rules of their language. We know that the roofs of the city were colored red, so most likely, originally it was named Yarkun, meaning red, which etymologically derivates from Proto Slavic yar. Arkona existed from the 9th to the 12th century, and its existence as a religious Slavic center ended with the Danish army conquering the temple fortress and the defeated Rani pledging the adoption of Christianity. So, we can conclude that the game takes place somewhere between the 9th century and year 1168 when Arkona was burnt by the Danes. Though the map from the game doesn't look like real Rügen at all, so maybe all that information about the real world above was kinda pointless. Whatever. The game is short. It took me around 1.5 hours to finish it, and it would take even less time if I weren't making a map of the game while playing. I just do such maps for all point and click quests I play just for collection purposes. The game starts at home in the region of Zlatorozhye. The interface is very simple. The name of the location, the menu button, and the selected item from the inventory. From the dialogue with the main character's mother, we learn that his name is Kalida. In Russian, it's supposed to be written with ya actually. Kalida is a Slavic folklore character, a personification of a winter sun and a symbol of New Year's cycle. It's also the Slavic name for the Christmas Eve and all the ceremonies and rites performed during it. So the ancient Slavs didn't have a god under such name.
Неужто пришло время? Рубашка к телу близко, а смерть ближе. Что-то случилось в землях наших неладное. Ступай, Каледа, к ругийскому волхву. Он жизнью мудр. Узнай, что происходит. Могу дать тебе с собой что-то одно. Совет на дорогу. Часть карты земли нашей. Мое благословение или гостиниц, что к ругийскому волхву отнесешь. Хорошенько подумай, что тебе больше всего пригодится.
Mother says that something bad is happening in their lands and tells Kalida to visit the Volkhv, a wise man and a priest in ancient Slavic religions, to learn what's happening. She offers to give Kalida something for his journey, a piece of advice, a part of a map, a gift for a Volkhv, or her blessing. I decided to take a part of a map, but spoiler, it doesn't affect anything.
Куда бы вода не потекла, до берега держит. Только сильный духом и добрый сердцем сможет вернуть яйцо рода в ругийские земли. Ждут тебя испытания тяжкие, да дорога дальняя. Собери все силы свои и не сходи с пути. Красный цвет свинтовита укажет тебе решение верное. За меня не беспокойся. Лягу свернусь, стану встряхнусь.
I just didn't manage to find an equivalent of the proverb «лягу свернусь, встану встряхнусь», so I translated it literally. It's about either a hardworking or a lonely or a poor person. So the mother mentions the stolen egg and that it must be returned, though in her previous line she just said to go to the wolf to find out what had happened. Outside there are some runestones, they will be needed later for solving puzzles. And also this creature.
Помоги мне, добрый человек.
А кто ты такой?
Я кладовник. Охраняю клады, что люди в землю зарыли. Зовут меня Кудеяр. Я главный дух-кладовник земли этой. Коли хочешь сохранить золото и чистить серебро от людей недобрых, положи их в горшок глиняный, закопай в укромном месте и положись на меня.
In reality, there was a folklore character by this name, but the character appeared only in the 16th century. He was an outlaw and, according to the legend, a brother of Ivan the Terrible. We can either help him or go away. The game never punishes you for choices and mistakes.
Хорошо, попробую помочь тебе.
Ох, спасибо тебе, Каледа, выручил ты меня. Обронил я у краеугольного камня медное зеркальце, что письмена древние читать помогает. Коли будешь там, возьми его себе, пригодится.
Speaking about ancient writings, in the neighbor's house there are two letters, and for some reason they are written in Pseudo Slavic runes which are mirrored. Why? Just why? Okay, Pseudo Slavic runes, let them be. It kinda adds to the atmosphere, though they don't vibe Slavic to me at all. There are a lot of speculations about ancient Slavic alphabets and runes, but in reality, the first Slavic alphabet was called Glagolitsa, the Glagolitic script in English, and was created in the 9th century to translate Christian religious texts. These runes are. I don't know what they are. Most of them look like normal Cyrillic letters, and all others are some distorted Germanic runes or something. Thanks, Wintervid, they are not very hard to read if you speak Russian, but no Slavic tribes wrote from right to left mirroring letters. In which secret historical documents did the authors find it? No, I understand that it's also a gameplay element because there is indeed a mirror that mirrors those texts so you can read them normally, but lore wise, it just doesn't work. People around Koleda write from right to left, and he, being born and raised among them, can't read it without a mirror? Eh. So here's the text. You can pause and read it. The first paragraph is loosely quoted from Hypatian Codex, Ипатьевская летопись, which is the most important source of historical data about Kievan Rus. Gods Perun, Stribog, Mokosh, Dazhbog, and Veles are mentioned in the Russian primary chronicle, or the Tale of Bygone Years, Повесть временных лет, in the 12th century. Perun is a god of sky, thunder, storms, rain, law, fertility, war, and oak trees. Stribog is most likely a god of wind and air. Mokash is a goddess of soil, water, and fertility. Dashbog is a god of sun. Veles is a god of cattle. Rod is mentioned in the word of Saint Gregory the theologian about how pagans bowed to idols. He is a god of family ancestors and fate. Speaking about grandchildren of Stribog, there was a god under the name Padaga, but most likely it was a she, and she was a female incarnation of Dazhbog. Pochvist, Pozvist, or Pogvist was a god of air, weather, good and bad. He is also mentioned in the Russian primary chronicle. And I don't know where they took Rah from. I found only a demon from Hinduism under the name Rahu. And also, some information about it was given on sites titled something like Aryan Russia, Forgotten Gods of the Slavs, so I didn't go too far into it. In the same location, there is the second text written in the same way. Once again, you can pause to read it. So, it didn't take long to learn that our main character is the son of God and a mortal woman. Okay. Simargl is an East Slavic god or gods mentioned in primary chronicles. This is either one god bird or two gods of agriculture. Chernobog is an evil god of misfortune of the Palabian Slavs, and Kashey is an archetypical male antagonist in Russian folklore who hides his death inside nested objects to protect it. In the game, they are merged into one character. And this merging is also something that comes from neo paganism. I found a lot of mentions of Maya Zlatogorka on the internet, but all the information was copied from one page to another, and they all referred to a guy who turned out to be a pseudoscientist. So, though the tale is fun, it's said that Maya Zlatogorka was a giantess whom Dazhbog tried to beat while she was sleeping. She awoke, hid him and his horse in her casket, and nearly forgot them there. But then she put Dazhbog out and ordered him to marry her, threatening to kill him otherwise. But again, no authentic sources mentioning such legend exist. So, we take a part of a map, a part of a ritual, and head outside to the White Veja. Veja means a tower. Here, an old man meets us. He is called like that in the game files, just the old man. And what's very funny, his movement described as crawling. He instantly drops some lore about the origin of the name of a flower, Kupala Damavka, Kupala and Mavka, which nowadays we in Russia call Ivan Damaria. Ivan and Maria. It's a folk name of several kinds of flowers.
А знаешь, откуда купала да мавка? Цветок аленький свое начало берет. Встретил Симаргл, бог огня, на берегу Рарики купальницу. Приглянулась она ему, и родились у них сын Купала, да дочь Кострома. Развела судьба детей, а потом стали они мужем и женой. Узнав о родстве своем, ужаснулись и утопились в Рарике. Жить друг без друга не могли, а вместе быть правь закон земной не позволяла. Жалились над ними боги и превратили в цветов Купала да Мавка.
Yeah, I need to say that the voice work here is very peculiar.
Не спеши, мил человек, отдохни, сядем редком, поговорим лотком. Остановил демон-иссушитель колесницу Сварога на небесах, запер его межоблачный кал, но вступил Перун в битву с демоном, разбил его облачные скалы, отверз скрытые в них сокровища и умерил томительный зной дождевыми ливнями, и расцвел в лесу золотой Перунов цвет, разлив кругом яркий свет, словно солнце. И вышли клады из земли, горя синими огоньками. С тех пор бытует поверье, будто Перунов цвет могучей силой обладает, открывает все замки и двери, кладовые и погреба, обнаруживает подземные клады, подобно тому, как удары огненных стрел, разбивая облачные скалы, обретают за ним золото лучей Сварога. Кто владеет чудным цветком, тот видит все, что скрывает земля.
If the previous legend about Kupala and Kostroma apparently is authentic, the story about Perun's flower, I'm not sure. I found only that it's associated with fern, but it needs more research. Anyway, both of these legends are connected with further events in the game. There's also a stone with an inscription which also contains a hint. Next, we go to the cornerstone. Here we finally find the copper mirror.
Вижу, взял ты мое зеркальце. Коль увидишь надпись тебе непонятную, подойди к ней, да достань зеркальце. Непонятное станет ясным.
Thank you very much. Nothing is clear about this inscription. I don't understand half of it. We could go to Arkona right away, but maybe it's better to have a walk first. Thus, we come to the mine. There are 3 caves here. In the first one, we can find the first puzzle, and here I understood why else the pseudo runes were used. By reading the texts written with them, the player quickly understands which Russian letter corresponds to which rune. For example, here it's needed to write the name of the land, Ruyan. In the second cave, at first it's hard to understand what's needed to solve the puzzle. You can't move the pieces, can't combine them. It turns out it's needed to choose the right color. Water is blue, a plant is green, the sun and red, and the moon, I guess, is yellow. In the third cave, we find the power of the earth. The next location is Mavkina Rosip, which can be translated as Mavka's place. Here's the flower the old man told us about, but a huge snake with no voicing comes out of the lake. It says that it won't give us a flower because it's of a great value to it. Right now we can do nothing about it, so let's just move forward. This place is called the Burya Yaga's Ford, and that's her house. Probably a lot of you heard about Baba Yaga, but here it's Burya Yaga. And I found nothing about authenticity of this character, though the internet claims that she was a goddess of death and the wife of Veles. In her house there is a hint. There's one more hint on the table saying to look in the place where there's water, so we look in the bucket and some magic light shows us the idol above, which directs us to the boxes. The first one is empty, the second one has the key, and the third one a part of the map. The key opens the box on the table, and there's another part of the ritual. Then we arrive to the village of shadows. Those shadows appear out of the well and ask a riddle.
Не на меру, не на вес, а у всех есть.
If we answer incorrectly, we need just move to another location and then return again. The correct answer is mind. Now we can go down the well. This information is also will be needed very soon. Actually, what I really love about this game is that all texts and dialogues help you to solve puzzles. All of them, apart from the one with colors, are somehow mentioned in the game texts. Cromlech is mentioned. This is a megalithic construction made of large stone blocks, supposedly of ritualistic purposes. And here we also find a key and a calendar. The key opens a nook on the table, and we find another part of the map. And what's very interesting about this level design is that we are at the bottom of the well, and the exit is on the ground through a trapdoor. Ancient Slavic technologies, no less. By the way, in the game files, this location is called Garuda's house. Garuda is a Hindu deity, the king of birds. Here, Garuda is a wizard. We'll talk about him more a bit later, so most likely he wasn't supposed to live in the well. In the actual house, not in the well, we find Garuda's student. I know that it's his student only from the game files. At first, I didn't understand at all what the game wants from me. It turned out we need to step on the right plank on the floor. In case of a mistake, we turn out into a place called Nayadovы Говяды with some unpleasant old lady. We are not punished, we are just returned back, and thus it's easy to find the right plank. As a reward, Garuda student gives us some Joha berries, whatever that means. Then we can return to the White Veja and go to the Beaver Dam. Nothing to do here yet apart from taking all the runestones. The next place is the Grey Willow. In the hollow of a willow tree we find a sword, a quiver of arrows, как читается quiver, 0 идей, a runestone, some chests, and an inactive door. It will open later. Finally, we reach the Rugian Wolf.
Без соли, без хлеба, какая беседа. Разгневался на нас свинтовит Каледа. Мара с Мареной в Яв поднялись. Навьи бьют полчаны, колдовство черное кругом. Видно, украл Чернобог Кощей яйцо триглава из храма Арконы.
Что же делать? Кто может вернуть яйцо?
Существует книга Вед. Создал ее сам Сварог. Все в ней, прошлое, настоящее и будущее. Прописана она божественными знаками. Принеси мне эту книгу. Узнаем предсказание Сварога.
And there is one more text. Now, having a sword, we can beat the snake. Whoa, this game has cutscenes. After some more walking, I decided to return to places we have already been, and suddenly Garuda himself appeared in his. Well, maybe the killing of the snake is the trigger to spawn him. He needs a flower we already have. In reward, he gives us sleeping powder. He says to use it if it gets dark. Finally, I decided to go to Arkona, the great ancient city, the center of the Slavic religion, and it's guarded by two skeletons who just tell us to go away. Okay. To the left of the city, there is a Tarh камень, Tarh stone, On questionable pages of the internet, people say that Tarh is a part of Dazhbog's name, and his full name being Tarh Dazhbog, or something like that, but no historical authentic sources mention it. In the forest, a bunch of girls dancing in a circle appear. They ask for the bell we acquired from the Tarkstone. After getting the bell, they turn into bird ladies and transport us to the island of Jiva, which was described in one of the texts previously. Here's a bird standing on the book. The bird is Gamayun, and usually Gamayun is depicted with a woman's head, so here in the game we can see a rather unique interpretation. She's a symbol of wisdom and knowledge. She spreads divine messages and prophecies. And Garuda's student told us to give the berries to the bird who is close to the gods. So we exchange berries for a book and go further by boat. And we arrive at a cromlech. Here's one more hint. Inside the cromlech there are 6 idols and some beasts. These are the idols of the gods to whom we must bow in order of their seniority. The last god, the beast, turns out to be Veles, but we can bow to him only after using the sleeping powder on him. But at first I didn't even understand that something happened because the game does nothing to inform you that you did everything right or wrong. Now we can go out and turn out to be in the forest. After some more walking, we can stumble upon very not Slavic looking mermaids. Because Slavic mermaids, firstly, they are called rusalkas, they have legs. And they ask, I just chose the first variant because I didn't know the right answer, and it turned out to be the correct option.
Полынь!
If you choose parsley, they drag you into water, and it's supposed to be death and game over, but of course nothing happens. Thus, we acquire the power of water. And let's finally return to the wolf and give him the book.
Забудут люди заветы предков, отвернутся от своих богов, и власть перейдет к черному богу, и нашлет он на ругийские земли навьи полчища, и будет пленена ругийская земля до тех пор, пока не придет Каледа, сын бога и женщины. Сможет он превозмочь все трудности, сбросить власть черного бога и вернуть яйцо Триглава в храм Арконы, и смилостивится Свентовид, и вернется мир на ругийские земли. Ищи помощи у Перуна, он не дает солнцу с небес в эти лютые дни сгинуть, и тебе помочь сможет.
Suddenly, a frog appears from a bucket and says to go to the neighbor. So we return to the hollow of the grey willow. Now the door is opened. And this little guy is called Chudin.
Каледа, знаю, зачем пришел. Мяч тебе нужен для приношения Перуну. Дам я его тебе, но прежде посмотрим, на что ты способен. Принеси мне ларец от Svarogича, тогда и поговорим.
Svarogich means Svarog's son. Eastern Slavs knew him as a god of fire, and Palladian Slavs knew him as a god of war. And I also realized that we did nothing near the beaver dam, so I returned there, and there is one more puzzle. Here we need to write the name of the river, Ra-Rika, Ra River. And no, it's not connected with the Egyptian god of sun, no matter how hard some people want to believe in it. I didn't find any authentic sources that such name ever took place, but anyway, usually this pseudonym is referred to Volga, and it's kind of far from Rugen. Anyway, now we can cross the river. And we arrive at a burnt village. At first, let's go to the Bortin's house. And also, here's one more part of the map. The next house belongs to the armorer. His daughter is ill and he needs the living water. In Russian folk tales, it is a magic water that can heal, invigorate, and resurrect. In contrast, there is dead water. It can kill, turn into stone, but also splice the limbs and cure wounds. In most of the fairy tales I know, before resurrection with the help of the living water, the character is splashed with the dead water. If we go to the left, we'll find Svarog. He just vibes on the swings and asks the riddle. Both the army and the governor, it knocked them all down. Their answer is sleep. We take the casket, and in the village, suddenly there is a man who says,
Ключ, что в Седоеве сундуки открывает, в ларце Сворожича.
That's good to know, but we can do nothing with this information. The chests are still inactive, and we can't open the casket and take the key. We'll return to Chudin later. Now let's explore the location further. To the right of the village, there is Gamayun's Gorge. Here we pick Perun's flower. There's an old cromlech, but now it's closed, and a cave where we will find the power of fire. Here also a key and dead water, which we use to put the fire out. Now the mill. In the mill itself, there are some eyes in the dark. We need proper weapon to get rid of them. We return to Chodin and give him the casket.
Золотое сердце за серебро не купишь. Вот тебе яблочный мед. Возложи его на кумирню, что в старом Кромлехе. Да слова такие скажи. Славься, Перун, бог огнекудрый.
Perun's flower uncovers hidden stuff as we remember from one of the hints earlier. With the help of it, we find living and dead water and return to the armorer. In gratitude for saving his daughter, he gives us his bow. And the girl just instantly falls in love with Kalida.
Люб ты мне, Каледа, и ждать я тебя буду, что бы ни случилось.
And now, when we are starting to have more and more items in the inventory, it becomes more and more inconvenient because none of the items are named and you don't understand what you select. So we kill the eyes and acquire the power of the air. And now we can go to the old cromlech. We put mead on the shrine and Perun appears, but he is blown away by the winds. That old and pleasant lady appears, and now we know that her name is Gavань.
То ветры тешатся, утихомирить их нужно. Дух не улетит. Могу я и Перуна вернуть, но если дашь ты мне Перуна в цвет.
From one of the hints, we remember that the winds are vibing on the mill, so we return there. They ask who's the strongest one of them, and the right answer is Stribog, of course.
Stribog.
Ты прав, дед наш самый могучий.
Ты умен и справедлив, Каледа. Может, помощь тебе нужна наша?
Нужно мне дух Перуна удержать.
The winds stop.
Кто ты и как смел побеспокоить меня?
Нужно вернуть мне яйцо Триглава в залу Арконы, дабы избавить славную Ругию от черного бога. Не поможешь ли в деле моем?
Есть в Поднебесной иной мир, где люди сражаются друг с другом. Боги отвернулись от них. Спрятал там Чернобог Кощей яйцо. Лишь Мокоши известно, где находятся врата перехода. Живет она за мостом Овсеня. Тайну того моста хранит чародей Филин из синего леса.
Славься, Перун, бог огнекудрый.
Before going to the Blue Forest, let's return to the Black Huta. Huta is a single homestead settlement. We use the key on the door, and inside there is a letter. Outside there's a chest with a puzzle lock. The hint to it is inside the building, but to be honest, I just solved it randomly. Inside the chest, we find an iron arrow. Now to the Blue Forest. Here's one more Perun's flower and a dwarf's house. In the letter, the dwarf says that he left a casket for us. The right one is near the letter. If we go further in the forest, there'll be some strange glowing. With the help of Perun's flower, we find one more sleep powder and the enchanter owl. If we try to talk to it, it'll fly away, so we'll have to kill it with the iron arrow. And the owl drops a scroll. A spell is written on it.
Белый конь, чудо-день, черный конь, чудо-ночь. Добрый конь осержается, от сырой земли отделяется, горы и долы промеж ног пропускает.
And thus Ovsin's bridge appears. By the way, Ovsin is the 13th of January according to the folk calendar of Eastern Slavs. It used to be the 31st of December back when Russia used the Julian calendar. We find ourselves in Blackwater. If we use the dwarf's enchanted casket here, we will be able to cross the water and enter Mokosh's home.
Здравствуй, Каледа. Узелок на нити завязался. Есть ли у тебя благословение матери?
Нет.
Без благословения? Так наберись терпения.
You remember there was a choice at the very beginning of the game, and I said that it affects nothing. Mokosh claims that we need our mother's blessing, and we of course can return and try to get it, but it's not needed. It's not needed to finish the game at all. We go outside the house and find Belgaruch Камень. It's also known as Alatyr, and in East Slavic legends and folklore, it is a sacred stone, the father of all stones, the navel of the earth. It has healing properties and so on. But here it's a portal. We place all the four elements to the right positions and that's it. We have the egg. It's that simple. If we click on the wrong runic stone, it'll become blocked. To dispel it, we just use the living water. The first stone gives us the last part of the ritual, and the fourth stone sends us to the other shore. Now we know what to do, but we still can't get past the dead god. So, near the cornerstone now stands Khors. He had uncertain functions, but after Perun, he is the most frequently mentioned Slavic god. We exchange our sword for an invisibility hat and go past the guards in it. They don't mind the gates just opening. Inside there's a lock with a calendar puzzle, but we already saw the Slavic calendar, so it's of no difficulty. In further chamber, which is supposed to be guarded by 3,600 plus armed men, there's no one, so we perform the ritual in peace. Doing all according to the manual restores the egg in its lawful place. And that's it. We have just saved the world. Yeah, the ending definitely hasn't been finished. And what about Mother's Blessing? If after encountering Mokosh we go all the way back to the very first location, which is not a very long journey, we'll find the doors locked with magic. We dispel it with the living water, but Maya's home is empty, and the neighbor, and his name is Bus, by the way, reports shocking news.
Мать твоя Каледа в темнице, в самой Арконе.
We can return to Arkona, but there's no prison. There's only the egg chamber. And do you know where the entrance to the prison of the greatest Slavic city ever existed on Earth is? Yeah, it's in the forest. Just a square hole in the forest. And some more shocking news await us.
Умертвил Чернобог Майю, в Навье царство ее отправил.
Oh no. now if we return to Burya Yaga, she'll be at home, and she has a riddle for us.
Красен ты, молодец. Да боюсь, умом ли вышел? Скажи, что за зверь имеет 2 головы, 6 ног и 1 хвост?
Всадник.
Верное слово железные ворота открывает. Проси, чего хочешь.
She's so impressed with our riddle-solving skills that she offers to ask for anything Kaleda wants. We ask for a canvas with a secret spell mentioned in one of the texts earlier. And here I stuck. Remembering the hint about the tree on Jiva Island, I returned there, but I couldn't interact with the canvas at all. Even if it was supposed to be used somewhere else, I couldn't even select it in my inventory. So further, I'll use information found on the internet. We just go to Navi, which looks like a dark cave, talk to Kalida's mother's ghost, and get her blessing. So all this hook gives us not much, but if we asked for a blessing in the first place, we would never learn about our mother's tragic demise. That's it. Peace restored. And I loved this game. Sure, it's unfinished, sometimes bizarre and too simple. The cutscenes are a separate kind of obscurity, and it's not authentic in the slightest, but it's nice. I think if it was ever released, we would get a wonderful game, adding to the popularity of the topic, but the history has turned out as it has turned out, and we have a piece of art frozen in its unfinishedness. And playing it is also an experience I really wanted to share. A couple of years ago, I visited a museum of Slavic mythology in Tomsk. There was nothing real about the Slavic mythology presented there. Mostly there were paintings of modern Russian artists, and one of them was Vsevolod Ivanov, who draws the lost past of great ancient Slavs or something like that. And I looked at it and thought that it was such a great and unique setting for a fantasy world. Imagine playing a game in such scenery. Of course, Arkona doesn't have the same vibe and the same scale in the slightest, but it's something. It's sad that it has never been finished and published, but we still have the opportunity to explore it. And maybe I over explain some things. Maybe I spent too much of your time speaking not about the game itself, but about the context it tries to convey. I did it because I myself, when watching, reading, or playing something foreign, can't help but think whether I miss something because of not knowing the context. Because of not having been raised in the culture and language of the piece of media I'm consuming, it always bothered me, in a good sense, how vast and different human experiences are. We can overcome this, though, and connect by sharing and telling stories and explaining stuff to each other. So, yeah, you'll find all the sources in the description, and thanks for watching.